안녕하세요. 썬데이 잉글리시입니다. 오늘은 Magic Treehouse Book 8 Midnight on the Moon 책을 처음부터 끝까지 읽어보도록 하겠습니다.
Prologue.
One summer day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. 8-year-old Jack and his 7-year-old sister Annie climbed into the treehouse. The treehouse was filled with books, and it was magic. It could go any place that was in the book. All Jack and Annie had to do was to point to a picture and wish to go there. They visited dinosaurs, knights, an Egyptian queen, pirates, ninjas, and the Amazon rainforest. Along the way, they discovered that the treehouse belonged to Morgan Le Fay. Morgan was a magical librarian from the time of King Arthur. She traveled through time and space, gathering books for her library. One day, Jack and Annie found a note that said Morgan was under spell. Jack and Annie set out in the magic treehouse to find the 4 special things that would free her. With the help of a mouse named Peanut, Jack and Annie found the first thing in old Japan, the second in the Amazon rainforest, and the third in the Ice Age. Now, Jack, Annie, and Peanut are ready to find the last thing in Midnight on the Moon.
Chapter 1. By Moonlight.
Jack, whispered a voice. Jack opened his eyes. He saw a figure in the moonlight. Wake up! Get dressed! It was his sister, Annie. Jack turned his lamp. He rubbed his eyes. Annie was standing beside his bed. She wore jeans and sweatshirt. Let's go to the treehouse, she said. What time is it? Asked Jack. He put on his glasses. Don't look at the clock, said Annie. Jack looked at his clock. Oh, man, he said. It's midnight. It's too dark. No, it isn't. The moon makes it bright enough to see, said Annie. Wait till morning, said Jack. No, now, said Annie. We have to find the 4th thing. I have a feeling that the full moon might help us. That's nuts, said Jack. I want to sleep. You can sleep when we come back home, said Annie. No time will have passed. Jack sighed. Oh, brother, he said, but he got out of bed. Yay, whispered Annie. Meet you at the back door. She tipped out of the back room. Jack yawned. He pulled on his jeans and sneakers and sweatshirt. He put his notebook and pencil into his backpack. Then he crept down the stairs. Annie opened the back door. Quietly, they stepped outside. Wait, said Jack. We need a flashlight. No, we don't. I told you. The moon will light our way, said Annie. And she took off. Jack sighed, then followed her. Annie was right, thought Jack. The moon was so bright that he could see his shadow. Everything seemed washed with silver. Soon they left the street. Annie led the way into the Frog Creek woods. It was much darker under the shadows of the trees. Jack looked up, searching for the treehouse. There, said Annie. The magic treehouse was shining in the moonlight. Annie grabbed the rope ladder and started climbing up. Careful, go slowly, said Jack. He followed her up the ladder and into the treehouse. Moonlight streamed through the window. It shone on the letter M that shimmered on the wooden floor. It shone on the 3M thing that rested on the M. A moonstone from the time of ninjas, a mango from the Amazon rainforest, and a mammoth bone from the Ice Age. We need just one more thing, said Annie, to free Morgan for spell. Squeak! Peanut, said Annie. In the dim light, Jack saw a tiny mouse. She sat in an open book. "You didn't expect to see us this late, did you?" said Annie. She picked up Peanut, and Jack picked up the open book. "So where were you going this time?" Annie asked him. Jack held the book up to the moonlight. "Uh-oh," he said. "I knew we should have to brought a flashlight. I can't read a thing." He could make a diagrams and shadowy pictures, but he couldn't read the word. "Look at the cover," said Annie. The letters were bigger on the cover. Jack squinted at them. "It called Hello Moon," he said. Annie gasped. "We're going to the moon?" "Of course not," said Jack. "It's impossible to go to the moon without tons of equipment. There's no air. We can't breathe. Not only that, we'll boil to death if it was day, and freeze to death if it was light." "Yikes," said Annie. "So where do you think we're going?" "Maybe a place where people train to be astronauts," said Jack. "That sounds neat," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. He'd always wanted to meet astronauts and space scientists. "So say the wish," said Annie. Jack opened the book again. He pointed a picture of a dome-shaped structure. "I wish we could go there," he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was silent. Absolutely silent. As quiet as little as silent could be.
Chapter 2. Space Motel.
Jack opened his eyes. He looked out the window. The treehouse had landed inside a large white room. "What kind of training place is this?" asked Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. The room was round. It had no windows. It had white flowers and curved walls lit by bright lights. "Hello," Annie called. There was no answer. "Where are all the astronauts and space scientists?" Jack wondered. "There's nobody here," said Annie. "How do you know?" said Jack. "I just feel it," said Annie. "We'd better find out where we are," said Jack. He looked at the page in the moon book. He read the words below the picture of the dome. A moon base was built on the moon in the year 2031. The top of the dome slides open to let spacecrafts enter and leave. "Oh man," Jack whispered. "What's wrong?" said Annie. Jack's heart pounded with excitement. He could hardly speak. "We've landed inside a moon base," he said. "So," said Annie. "So the moon base is on the moon," said Jack. Annie's eyes widened. "We're on the moon?" she asked. Jack nodded. "The book says the moon base was built in the year 2031, he said. "So this book was written after that. Which moon this book is from the future." "Oh, wow," said Annie. "Morgan must have gone forward in time to borrow it from a future library." "Right," said Jack. "And now we're in the future, on the moon." Squeak, squeak. Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. The mouse was running around in circles. "Poor Peanut," said Annie. She tried to pick the mouse up, but Peanut hid behind a Lego on the letter M. "Maybe he's nervous about being on the moon," said Annie. "She's not the only one," said Jack. He let out a deep breath. Then he pushed his glasses into place. "So what's a moon base?" asked Annie. Jack looked at the book. He read aloud. "When scientists visit the moon for a short period, they eat and sleep in the moon base." A space motel, said Annie. I guess, said Jack. He read more. The small base has a landing chamber and a room for storing suits. Air and temperature control make breathing possible. So that's why we can breathe, Jack said. Let's explore, said Annie. We have to find the 4 things for Morgan. No, first we should study this map, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook. You study it, said Annie. Jack copied the map. Then he drew in the treehouse. Okay, he said. He pointed at the X in his drawing. We're here. Jack looked up. Annie was gone. Oh, brother, Jack said. As usual, she had left without him, before they could even make a plan. Jack put the moon book and pencil into his pack. Carrying his book and backpack, he started out the window. Squeak, squeak! Jack looked back at Peanut. The mouse was running back and forth into Anne. Stay here and be safe, said Jack. We'll be back soon. Jack swung over the sill. His feet touched the floor of the landing chamber. Annie, he called. There was no answer. Jack looked at his diagram. It showed only one way to go. Jack walked along the curved wide wall to the stairs. He climbed the steps to the hallway. Jack, hurry! Annie was at the end of the hallway, standing in the airlock. She peered out the window in a giant door. Jack hurried toward her, and he stepped aside so he could look out the window too. Oh man, said Jack. What he saw took his breath away. He stared at the rocky gray land, the landing filled with giant craters and tall mountains. The sun was shining, but the sky was ink black. Say hi to the moon, Annie said softly.
Chapter 3. Open Sesame.
The 4th M thing must be out there, said Annie. Beside the door was a button with the word open on it. Annie reached for the button. Wait, Jack grabbed her hand. There's no air on the moon, remember? Oh, right. But we have to go out to find the M thing. Let's see what the book says, said Jack. He pulled the book out of his pack. He flipped through it until he found a page that showed the surface of the moon. He read aloud, It takes 14 Earth days to equal 1 day on the moon. No air protects the moon from the sun's rays, so daytime heat reaches 260 degrees. Jack looked at Annie. I told you our blood would boil if we went out there, he said. Yuck, she said. Jack read the book again. Moon scientists wear spacesuits which have control to keep them from getting too hot or too cold. They have tanks which provide air for 2 hours. Where do you get suits? Asked Annie. She looked around the trodden back down hall. Maybe there? Jack was studying his map. Let's try the spacesuit storeroom. Don't look at the map, said Annie. Look at the real room. Jack glanced up. Annie was peering through a doorway of the hall. There's a ton of space shops in here, she said. Jack went to look. Bulky white suits hung from hangers. Air tanks, helmets, gloves, and boots set in neat rows on shelves. Wow, it's like an armor room in a castle, said Jack. Yeah, with huge armor, said Annie. Let's pick out the smallest stuff, said Jack. The suits can go over our clothes. Annie found the smallest white suit, and Jack found the next smallest. They stepped into them. Then Annie locked Jack's air tank into place. Thanks, he said. Danny did the same for her. Thanks, she said. Gloves, said Jack. He and Annie pulled on white gloves. Boots, said Annie. They each pulled on a pair of huge white boots. Helmets, said Jack. He reached for the helmet. Wow, they're pretty light, he said. I thought they'd be like night helmets. Jack and Annie pulled the helmets on. They locked each other's visors. I can't move my hands right or left, said Annie. Me neither, said Jack. Let's try walking. Jack and Annie moved clumsily around the room. Jack felt like a fat snowman. Close your visor, said Annie. They both closed their see-through visor. Cool air filled Jack's helmet. I can breathe, Annie yelled. Her voice boomed in Jack's ear. Ow! I talk quietly, Jack said. We have 3 radios inside the helmet. Sorry, whispered Annie. Jack put the moon book back into his pack. Then he slung the pack over his shoulder. Okay, he said. Remember, we only have 2 hours there, tanks, so we need to find the 4M thing really fast. I hope we can find it, said Annie. Me too, said Jack. He knew he could not go until they did. Let's go, said Annie. She gave Jack a little push. Watch it, no goofing off, he said. We don't have all these suits. Just go, said Annie. She pushed him out of the room. They walked back to the airlock. Ready, said Annie. Open sesame. She pressed the open button. A door slowly closed behind them. A door opened in front of them. And Jack and Annie stepped out onto the moon.
Chapter 4. Moon Rabbits.
Oh, wow, said Annie. She took a step forward, but Jack stood frozen. He wanted to get a good look at everything first. He started at the ground. He was standing in a layer of gray dust as fine as a powder. Footprints were everywhere. Jack wondered who had made them. He reached into his pack for the moon book. To his surprise, it was light as a feather. He found a picture of footprints on the moon. He read, "The moon has no rain or wind to blow the dust around, so footprints will never ever, not even in a billion years." Oh man, Jack said. The moon was the stillest place he had ever been. It was as still as a picture, and stillest would never ever end. Jack stared at the ink black sky. A lovely blue and white ball glowed far away. Earth. For the first time, it really hit Jack. For outer space. Wow! She bounded past Jack, almost flying through the air. She landed on her feet. Then she jumped again. "I'm a moon rabbit," she called. Jack laughed. How does she do that? He wondered. He turned the page and read, "A person weighs less on the moon because of the moon's low gravity and lack of air. If you weigh 60 pounds on the earth, you will weigh 10 pounds on the moon." "Don't standing there reading," said Annie, grabbing the book from Jack's gloved hand. She tossed it into space. It flew far away. Jack stared after it. He bounced up and down. Boing, boing, boing. Now he felt as light as a feather. "Look," he called Annie. "I'm a moon rabbit too." Where Jack's boot hit the ground, moon dust gracefully sprayed into space. The book had landed at the edge of the shallow crater. But Jack reached it. He tried to stop, but his feet slipped. He fell right over and lay on his side. He tried to stand, but he was off balanced. He tried again, but the dust was too deep, and his spacesuit was too clumsy. "You okay?" asked Annie. "I can't get up," said Jack. You should have been goofing off, said Annie wisely. You goofed off first, said Jack. Now help me up, please. Annie started toward him. Don't fall too, warned Jack. I won't. Annie moved very slowly. He half floated, half walked. Give me your hand, she said. Annie grabbed Jack's hand. She pressed her boot against his and pulled him up. Thanks, he said. No problem, she said. It was easy. You were really light. Thank goodness, said Jack. It's impossible to get up alone. He picked up the moon book. It was covered with dust. He brushed it off. Oh, wow, look, said Annie. She stood at the edge of the crater. What is it? Said Jack. A moon buggy, said Annie. The buggy was parked in the crater. It had 4 huge wheels. Let's go for a ride, said Annie. We can't, said Jack. We just have 2 hours in the evenings. Remember? We'll bet we anything faster if we take a moon buggy. Annie bounced in the crater. But we can drive, said Jack. I bet I can drive this, said Annie. It looks easy. Come on. She jumped into the driver's seat. But you don't have a license, said Jack. Who cares, said Annie. There aren't any roads on the moon or stoplights or policemen either. She was right, Jack thought. Well, go slow, he said, and he climbed in beside her. Annie pushed the button and leapt on. The moon buggy lurched backward. Yikes, said Annie. Step on the brake, said Jack. He pressed the button on the floor. The buggy stopped with a jerk. Phew, she said. I must be in reverse, said Jack. Let me study this. But before he could study anything, Annie pushed another button. The button tilted back. Its front wheels started to rise on the air. Let me out of here, said Jack. And he pushed more buttons. The buggy front wheel leapt back on the ground, and the buggy leaped forward. Slower, said Jack. I can't, said Annie. I don't know how. Annie steered the buggy over the tracks on the ground. The wide wheels kept sinking in the dust. Careful, said Jack. The buggy zoomed down the crater. Great clouds of dust rose behind them as they took off across the moon.
Chapter 5. Hang on.
Annie drove the moon buggy over bumps and hollows. It barked like a bronco. I'm going through there. She pointed to an opening between 2 mountains. Jack held on the dashboard. The buggy bumped toward the opening and shot through. On the other side, the ground was even rockier. Look for the fourth thing, said Annie, bouncing up and down. Jack groaned. Looking for anything on the wild ride was impossible. So slow down, he said. How? Trying pressing on the brake pedal on the floor slowly. Annie pressed on the brake. The buggy slowed down. Jack sighed with relief. The ride was still bumpy, but at least he could take good like a moon. He had never been at such a colorless, barren place. There was no green, no blue, no red, no water, no trees, no clouds, only giant gray rocks and craters, and an American flag. Oh man, said Jack. That's from the first astronaut who landed on the moon. And look, a telescope, said Annie. She drove near the flag and telescope. Then she put her foot on the brake until the buggy stopped. She pressed the button instead off. Then she and Jack hopped out. They took slow giant steps to the side of the first moon landing. Beside the flag was a sign. Annie read it aloud. Here man from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind. That's a good message, said Jack. He handed the moon book to Annie. Then he took out his notebook and pencil to copy the sign. Let's live our message, said Annie. What should we say? Said Jack. The same thing, said Annie, but say we were the first kids. Jack turned to a note page in his notebook. In big letters, he wrote their message. Now we have to sign it, Annie said. Jack signed his name. Then he passed the notebook to Annie. She signed her name and passed the notebook back. Jack tore the piece of paper. He put it by the flag. Today, the first kids from the planet Earth came in the moon. We came in peace for all children. Jack, Annie. No wind would ever blow the message away. No wind ever fall on it. It would be in there forever unless someone move it. Thinking forever made Jack sleazy. He shook his head at the clear thought. Then he remembered. In the time, he had 2 hours past her yet. I wish we had a match, he said, standing up. We might pin our time. Oh, wow. Wow. A moon man, said Annie. What? Jack turned to look at her. She was staring through the telescope. Jack walked over the telescope. Annie stepped aside so he could look too. Jack gasped. In the distance, something was flying above the ground. It looked like a giant man in a space suit.
Chapter 6. High Jump.
Who is that? Said Jack. I don't know, said Annie, but we'll soon find out, she said, waving. No, said Jack. He grabbed her arm. Let's go back to the base before he gets here. Why? Said Annie. We don't know who he is, said Jack. We don't know who he's friendly or mean or what. But we can go back, said Annie. We haven't found the 4th M thing yet. We won't able to go home. It doesn't matter. We can lock the door at the moon base until he goes away, said Jack. Then we can get near things. Jack hurried on the moon buggy. Come on. He jumped into the driver's seat. Annie gave a wave to the dot on the sky. Then she climbed into the moon buggy. The buggy took off. Careful, said Annie. They bumped over the rocks as Jack turned the buggy around. Then they zoomed toward the pass. Jack steered around the craters, rocks. More than once the buggy nearly tipped over. Whoa, slow down, said Annie. They were almost at the mountain pass. Suddenly, a cloud of dust flew up in front of them. The ground trembled. Watch it, cried Annie. Jack couldn't see anything. See the brake. The buggy jerked us up. The dust settled. A giant rock had fallen into the narrow pass. It was stuck between 2 walls of rocks. They were trapped. Jack quick to find a picture of a giant rock in the moon book. He read aloud, "Rocks of all sizes crashed into the moon from outer space. The rocks were called meteorites." "We're lucky the meteorites didn't land on us," said Jack. "Yeah, I guess it's too big to be anything," said Annie. She climbed out of the moon buggy and standing on the meteorite. It was more bigger than twice the tallest. Jack looked at the black sky. The flying thing was nowhere in sight. We'll have to jump over it," Annie said. "Jump? I don't think so," said Jack. "It's too high." "I'm going to try anyway," said Annie. "Wait, let's think first," said Jack. But Annie already breaking off. 1, 2, 3, go! She shouted and took giant leaping steps toward the meteorite. When Annie got closer to the rock, she pushed off the ground. Then she flew through the space, disappeared behind the meteorite. Annie,
Annie,
Jack called. There was no answer. Oh, brother, Jack said. He backed up and took off toward the rock. He jumped high as he could. Then he was flying through the space. Jack hit the ground and fell faces into dust. Jack tried to stand, but his suit was too bulky. He tried to roll over, but his suit made even that impossible. Oh no, he groaned. Not again. Are you here? Asked Annie. Did you make it? Yes. Jack was relieved to hear her voice, but he couldn't turn his head to hear. He could only hear the radio. Can you help me up? He asked. Nope, said Annie. Why not? I fell down too, she said. Oh, brother, Jack sighed. Now we're really in trouble. He tried to stand again and failed. Can you see anything? He asked. Just the sky, said Annie. Wow, is it weird? I'm worried about everything, said Jack. I feel like it's been 2 hours. Jack, said Annie. And what about the moon man? Said Jack. Where did he go? To Jack, whispered Annie. What? He's here, she said. The moon man is here. What? He's standing above me.
Chapter 7. The Moon Man.
Jack's heart nearly stopped. He could hear Annie talking. Hi, she said. We come in peace. There was silence. Jack heard Annie saying, Thank you. I have to help my brother up now. A moment later, Annie rolled Jack onto his back. She grabbed his hand and pulled him up. Thanks, said Jack, once he was standing. The moon man was a few feet away. His face was hidden by a mantle visor. He looked like a spaceman, a huge spaceman, with a giant tank on his back. It was as big as a refrigerator. That's a jetpack, said Jack. I've seen pictures of future astronauts flying with those things. It's like a mini spaceship, right? The moon man didn't answer. I don't think he can hear us, said Annie. He's not hooked up on radio. Oh, right, said Jack. I'm gonna write a message. Good idea, said Annie. Jack pulled out a notebook and pencil. He wrote, We're Jack and Annie. We come in peace from America. Who are you? Jack handed the notebook and pencil to his moon man. They looked tiny in his big hands. Moon man looked down at the message. He looked at the tiny pencil. He turned the notebook over. Jack and Annie rushed. The moon man put the pencil to the paper. He was writing something very careful. Finally, he gave the notebook back to Jack. Jack and Annie stared at the marks. Stars, said Annie. He drew stars. Maybe it's a space map, said Jack. Space map? Said Annie. Hey, Jack, map started with M. Oh, wow, said Jack. This must be the 4th M thing. Let's ask him what the map means, said Annie. She turned around. We'll never know how, she said. Why? Jack looked up from map. That's why, Annie pointed. The moon was flying over the mountains. Thanks, Annie cried.
Chapter 8. One star to another.
Who was that guy? Said Jack. What does the map mean? I don't know, said Annie. But let's see if it works. Jack took a deep breath. Yeah, we'd better hurry back. I think I'm running out of air. It feels harder to breathe. For me, too, said Annie. Go slow. Don't breathe too much, said Aunt Jack. He and Annie took long floating steps toward the moon base. Jack held his breath everywhere were underwear.
By the time they got to
The white dome, he was ready to burst. Annie pushed a button beside the huge door. It slid open. They hurried into the airlock. The door closed behind them, and the door of the hallway opened. Jack opened the visor of his helmet. He took a long, deep breath and let it out. "Let's get out of the suit," said Annie. "Good idea." Jack was dying to his feet, his arms and legs. As they moved clumsily into the spacesuit storeroom, Jack felt very weak again. He and Annie unlocked each other's helmet, gloves, and boots and pulled everything off. Then they stepped out of both suits. "Whew," Jack said. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. It was great to be free, even if he no longer felt as feather. "Hurry, Peanut's waiting," said Annie. She led the way down the steps to the bright landing chamber. "Yay," she said softly. Jack was relieved to see the trio still there. Soon they headed home. He couldn't wait. Jack and Annie crawled through the treehouse window. "We're back, Peanut," said Annie. "Squeak!" Peanut ran to the letter M. "We missed you," said Annie. She patted the mouse's head. "We met the moon man." "Sorry, Peanut, but you have to move," said Jack. "We have to put the map on the M." Annie gently lifted the mouse off the M.
Jack tore the star map out of
into
his
a small
notebook.
book. He placed it on M next to the mammoth bone, the mango, and the moonstone. He sighed, then stepped back to the hills. "Hand me the Pennsylvania book," he said. He needed the Pennsylvania book to get back home. There was silence. Jack turned and looked at Annie. "It's not working, Jack," she said. "The book's not here." "What? The map wrong thing?" They looked around the treehouse. "It's definitely not here," said Annie. "Oh no," Jack's heart sank. He picked up the star map and stared at it. Squeak, squeak! Peanut jumped out of Annie's arms and scurried back to the letter M. "I've got an idea," said Jack. He reached into his pack and took a pencil. "What are you doing?" said Annie. "You know how to draw a constellation," said Jack. "You connect all the stars. What happens if you try that?" He drew a line from the stars to one another. He kept drawing until all the stars were connected. "Let me see," said Annie. Jack held the paper out so we could both study it. "It looks like a mouse," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "Is there such a thing as a mouse constellation?" said Annie. "I don't think so," said Jack. Squeak! Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. She was standing on the M. "Oh, wow!" Annie whispered. "I think I know the fourth M thing is." Jack grinned. "Me too," he said. "It's a mouse," they said together. Squeak, squeak! "Maybe the spell is moonstone, mango, mammoth bone, mouse," said Annie. Jack touched each M thing, turned as he whispered. "Moonstone, mango, mammoth bone, mouse." "Let's say it over and over and see what happens," said Annie. Together they chanted, "Moonstone, mango, mammoth bone, mouse. Moonstone, mango, mammoth bone, mouse." Suddenly a bright light filled the treehouse. The light got brighter and brighter and brighter. The brightness was blinding, the whirling. The air spun with brightness. Then everything was clear. Peanut the mouse was gone, and Morgan the Fae stood before Jack and Annie.
Chapter 9. Morgan.
Thank you, Morgan said softly. You have freed me from the magician's spell. Jack just stared at her. You were Peanut? Annie said. Morgan nodded and smiled. Really? You were with us all the time? Said Jack. On all our missions? Morgan nodded again. Why did we have to go on the missions to find a mouse? Said Jack. If you were always with us. To break the spell, we had to find the moon, said Morgan. You would have broken the minute we arrived. Oh, that's what you were trying to say, said Annie. We didn't have to leave the moon base at all. Morgan nodded, smiling. But the moon man came along to help us, said Annie. He drew a constellation of a mouse. Is he a friend of yours? Morgan shrugged. Let's just say we had a little talk. He stopped by the moon base while you were out. The same way you had a talk with the Ninja Master, right? Said Jack. And the monkey man, and the sorcerer. Morgan nodded. I always squeaked to once help you. But how do they understand you? A mouse, said Jack. Morgan smiled again. Certain wise ones understand the language of the little creatures, he said. I bet you could turn the pages of the book, said Annie, to show you how next. Morgan nodded. But who turned you into a mouse? Said Annie. Morgan frowned. A certain person who liked to play tricks on me, she said. His name is Merlin. Merlin? Said Jack. The greatest magician who had ever lived. Morgan sniffed. He's not that great, she said. He doesn't even know I have two brave friends to help us. Us? Said Annie shyly. Morgan nodded. And I thank you both with all my heart. You're welcome, said Jack and Annie. Morgan handed Annie Pennsylvania book. Are you ready to go home now? She asked. Yes, said Jack and Annie. Annie pointed to the picture of Frog Creek Woods. I wish we could go there, she said. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still.
Chapter 10. Earth Life.
The midnight woods woke up. A breeze rustled to leave. An owl hooted. The sounds were soft but very alive. Jack opened his eyes. He pushed his glasses into place. He smiled. Morgan was still with them. He could see her moonlight. Her long white hair was shining. Morgan, can you get your treehouse lair here? Said Annie. In Fall Creek? No, I must live again. I'm afraid, said Morgan. I've been gone with Camelot for a long time. She handed Jack his pack. She brushed his cheek. Her hands felt soft and cool. A bit of moon dust still on you, she said. Thank you, Jack, for your great love of knowledge. You're welcome, said Jack. Morgan touched on one Annie's braid. And thank you, Annie, for your belief in the possible. You're welcome, said Annie. Go home now, said Morgan. Jack smiled. Home was worth that bright, colorful world where everything was alive and always changing. Bye, Morgan, said Annie. She started out of the treehouse. Jack looked back at Morgan. Will you come back soon? He said. Anything can happen. Morgan.
said Morgan.
The universe is filled with wonder, isn't it, Jack? He smiled and nodded. Go now, Morgan said softly. Jack followed Eddie down the rope ladder. He stepped onto the ground. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to shake. A long roar filled Jack's ears. He squeezed his eyes shut. He covered his ears. Then everything was silent and still. Jack opened his eyes. The ladder was gone. He looked through the leaves and branches of the giant oak tree. The treehouse had been only moonlight now. Bye, Morgan, he whispered sadly. Bye, Peanut, said Annie. Jack and Annie stared at the top of the tree for a long moment. Ready? Said Annie. Jack nodded. He shouted for a moment. The midnight air felt cool and moist. It was filled with soft sounds of earth life. Jack and Annie left the Frog Creek woods. They started down the street. Annie glanced up at the sky. The moons look very far away, doesn't it? I did, Jack. It was. I wonder how the moon can be up there alone, said Annie. What do you mean? Said Jack. I mean, who helped him put on suit? Said Annie. Who helped him get it up and falls down? And who is he? asked Jack. Who do you think he was? Said Annie. He must be a scientist or an astronaut from Earth, said Jack. No, I think he's an alien, said Annie. From another galaxy. Jack scoffed. What makes you sad, Dad? I just feel it, said Annie. Wrong, said Jack. There's no proof that aliens exist. They may not now, said Annie. But don't forget, we're in future. Oh, brother, said Jack. They crossed the yard and climbed their back steps. Annie tiptoed inside the house. Jack followed her. Before he shut the door, he glanced up at the moon. Was Annie right? He wondered. Could the moon man have come from another galaxy? Morgan's words came back into him. The universe is filled with wonders. Isn't it, Jack? Good night, Moonman, Jack whispered. Then he closed the door. 네, 이게 Magic Treehouse Book 8, Midnight on the Moon 의 끝! 마지막 챕터, 마지막 장이었습니다. 감사합니다.